All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining. We have a very special guest from YouTube. His name is MauLer, and he has done some fantastic analysis of Star Wars The Last Jedi, aside from other stuff on his channel, which is also video game related. And he has been, in my opinion, the most articulate, detailed, long-winded, anal-retentive, creative way of expressing these ideas, which a lot of us might have had during our viewing of this movie if we actually bothered to spend money for this movie. Some people might have just downloaded it and said, oh my God, thank God I did not hit that thing at the theater. But this is the guy who went through the trenches. He actually watched it and put his mind to paper and finally to video. And I believe it was the Star Wars Last Jedi, the Unbridled Rage video, which got you on the map in December and especially this month as well when I noticed you. And we had to talk to this guy. So thanks for joining me.
Oh, thank you for the very extensive intro there. It feels weird because I've been, I've spent a good year and a half of sort of YouTube anonymity. Nobody cares about my videos, but now it's like I really like.
Yeah, the great thing about your stuff is you do response videos, and I do response videos as well. And I take, some popular YouTuber, I'll tear them apart for about 10 minutes. You will tear apart one guy for, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours.
I assume you haven't seen the Dark Souls 2 stuff.
I just glanced over. I was like, "Wow, that's long."
Yeah, I wouldn't blame anybody unless you really are invested in the situation. Like, it's not much reason I would expect you to. But yeah, the biggest criticism I have for the series is it's too long or it's too long. Oh, it's like, oh, you spent 10 hours to say you don't like him. Is that it? And I'm like, no, unless you watch it, you'll never understand. Like, I just basically go through a line of logic, and I'm like, oh, I just said something that I feel like I should explain first. And then I do it, and then I explain something in that, and then in that, and you could argue it goes off on a sort of vagary trail, but the audience that have found it loved it, and I was just like, I guess there are audiences out there for super long content, and that's how I felt about the Star Wars stuff. I was like, it's going to be 5 hours in total, but there are people out there who want it,
It is true. I found that on my channel, there's a small group of people who want really long, drawn-out analysis, like 2-hour videos. I did that, well, not 2 hours, but one of mine was for Mass Effect 3, and I spit out all the crap I found. And it was really just rage. I just had to get rid of all this issues and problems with the story. Yeah. And it's very, like, I have to do it. It's like a form of catharsis, and I want people to know you're not alone out there, that the thing you love so much has been destroyed. Like, I'm trying to translate the people, because most of the fans of my channel love the BioWare game studio. Yeah. And when they see what happens to Dragon Age or Mass Effect, it's like they not only drop the ball, they intentionally hurt their fans. And it's as if people like Brian Johnson or Casey Hudson or whomever don't even have the balls to say, oh, we screwed up. Or look at the sales figures. Yeah, it dropped from last year. Why is that? And even like, was it this week or last week when Ryan has been constantly defending himself? He says, no, I would not change a thing. There's nothing in the script I would change. And this is the most, I mean, what do you say to a person after that, after there's a cavalcade of problems that people have voiced?
The interesting thing for me is, like, there isn't anything I've made on YouTube that I wouldn't change. There are always tweaks. I'd be like, oh, I wouldn't mind putting that there or putting this there. It's like, come on, Ryan, really? Like, there's nothing? Not a single thing. A little bit of dialogue or a scene that is cut. Because, there are some problems. Say, for example, the hyperdrive problem. Like, a lot of people really don't feel like it's an issue. And it's like, there's a discussion to be had there. But, like the continuity stuff where people disappear or items disappear. It's like, there's nobody on the planet that can say, that's absolutely fine. It's like, it's not. It's really not. That's like a movie mistake.
That is my number one continuity. That is the biggest mistake in the whole movie, just for me. Just that one right there you mentioned.
I don't see how you can be like, oh, that's fine though. And it's like, it's a literal gap in the film. You can't do that in storytelling. You can't just go, well, this is this now. And you're like, oh, it's not really storytelling. It's more just, then this happens, then this happens. And you're like, okay.
It's like
it's moving nuts watching Phasma just change your weapon every once in a while. I was just like, what the hell's going on?
That Phasma scene, I saw it in your second part. That was probably, I didn't know how damaging it was because I thought, okay, they're just trying to make it spectacular. And she pulls out a pistol. You're like, wait, what? She had this the entire time.
A friend of mine, when they watched the video, they paused it. They were like, a spear? What the hell is that spear? Why does she have it? Where did she get the spear from? Why does she have it? And I was like, just let it go. She has a spear. I don't know. It's retractable, I guess. She keeps it on her belt. I have no idea.
every time I see, even in media, cartoons, I see a retractable weapon, my brain goes back to Babylon 5, where they create an entire order of warrior monks that have a retractable spear, and they explain the
Yeah,
history. It's like, wow, they actually went through, how they make this spear, all this stuff. And here we talk, no, retractable spears. Yeah, this is a common thing. No problem. We just carry it with us.
I liked as well. I tried to point it out with my my video, but like she's standing right there, and then Ray goes to shoot at it. No, sorry, Ray. Rose goes to shoot at it, but Rose gets hit by that turret that I mentioned that just pops out of nowhere. And then it like cuts to her, and she like goes, Finn, like, and then Finn turns around and realizes the Phasma's there. Like, why? He should have known that already. This is the same scene, right? Continue. It's like for some reason he's just forgotten, and he's turned around, and then she's like, look, Finn, there's Phasma. And it's like, why doesn't he know this? It's like, what?
I was just shooting at her in case you were not paying attention. See those bolts that came off her head? That was me.
Did you know as well? I didn't cover it again because I feel like I've covered half the problems in the film or something by the end of my series. It's insane. It's so stuffed with them. In the background of Finn and Phasma fighting, BB-8 is actually going on a rampage. It's like CGI.
I did not see that.
He's just going boom, boom, boom behind, knocking loads of stormtroopers out. And I was thinking to myself, like, I guess that explains kind of where the turret one came from. Like, there's this huge army in the background that get mopped away. But it comes across as like a video game, like a 2D fighter with a vibrant background where stuff's happening, like Mortal Kombat or something.
Yeah, and of course the little sidekick can commandeer a piece of artillery on stilts that just.
Someone said that in an extra comment, they were like, oh, there's probably a deleted scene where the code breaker shows that he actually is morally good, and he would have helped BB-8 not only hack into and get to the AT-ST, but also like assisted in some other way and shown where something was. And I was thinking to myself, like, look, even if that scene existed, I would have so many questions. But again, you're just writing the film for him because this doesn't make any sense. How did BB-8 do all of this? Like,
that was the common problem when you talk to these fans about, oh, well, this probably happened. It's like, listen, you cannot invent the narrative for the sake of trying to fill in holes that you discovered yourself. Like they're so forgiving of continuity or plot holes or whatever. They have to invent things to make their version of the narrative make sense. And I've seen that not just in Star Wars films, but even in video games. And
well, I mean, the response then becomes like, well, it's no worse than the other Star Wars films. And I'm always sitting here like, oh, I don't think we saw the same ones, to be honest. yes, any film that has a plot hole is now on the same level as The Last Jedi. That's how that works.
Wow. Just one. Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, that's the scale, right? Like, you watch a film and it's perfect other than this one small thing. It's like, oh, Last Jedi. Same thing.
I might want to go back to the theater maybe next month if it's still playing. It probably still will be, just to see how much, because every scene, when I watched the first time, every scene I was just repulsed. I was like, this is bad. This is not the way it should go. This is bad. Oh, look, some nuns nearly got crushed by a boulder. That was kind of funny, but and it just kept getting progressively.
Yeah, it's really dense with things that you need to not think about them, otherwise you just can't sit there and go like, oh no, what is happening? And like I said, I can't even cover it all. That was my whole goal with this, was to be as extensive as possible. But every single time I rewrite a sentence, someone else goes, well, what about this though? And I'm like, this
That's what you mentioned. You mentioned, I think, in your first video, you're like, you thought you discovered everything, and then you'd read a comment and like, no, there's like 5 more, and you'd be like, oh no.
At the beginning of part 3, I go over some stuff I've missed, and I'm constantly re-scripting things in it. I don't want to make it too much of a bloated mess or anything, but there are some super interesting ones. Someone commented on part 2 mentioning that, do you remember in The Force Awakens where Maz Kanata says to Rey that I know you're looking for your parents or whatever, but you're never going to find them. They're never coming back. And then Rey like looks down, sort of tears up and stuff, and then moves on, implying that it was a mini arc, sort of, that she actually got over the idea that she's not going to go back to Jakku because her parents aren't coming back, and that's that. But then it's become this huge thing in the second film. And he pointed out, like, this commenter, he was like, don't you think it's sort of indicative that Ryan is writing it with the fans' perspective in mind and not the characters? Because, like, why would Rey care to find out anything about the parents when she knows they're not coming? She's gotten over it, is kind of what the first film implied. But then she, like, reverts back. similarly to Finn, actually has a very feels like a sort of reverted back in terms of character, and it comes across when you think about all the subversions and the other things that Ryan really only had what the fans were saying and thinking in mind when writing the script. He wasn't thinking about the characters and what they should be doing.
Well, the concept of subversion in the first place is probably not a very good idea for a blockbuster with 8 or 9 videos behind it. You've already have established fan base of things they like, and turning them on their head or just eliminating entire threads. I don't think you're going to benefit anyone. Not even the audience is going to say, "Oh yeah, I wasn't expecting that." Of course, you're not going to expect that. They were expecting something to come from it. That's why there was a buildup. That's why there was a previous movie and a previous series of movies. Why he used this technique, um, I just don't understand it. I'm not a film guy. I can't say I know how to make a film and what would be the reason for being a sequel material to actually subvert expectations, unless you're doing like a plot twist. But these aren't plot twists. These are little droppings of threads or just endings of threads for the sake of it, and then him just doing what he wanted. Now, one thing I learned this week was that he was writing the script, or he finished writing the script during the beginning production of The Force Awakens. This was released in, I think, Jar Binks. No, JJ, was it? It's a YouTube channel. I can't remember the name of it. JJ Abrams. Jar Abrams, I'm sorry. And there was a clip where they said there was a male writer, Ryan and Mark. And they were saying, yeah, well, this was locked in stone 13 months before we went to production, which was during the production of The Force Awakens. So they had 2 years roughly to make the thing. And I'm thinking, who the hell locks down a script and sits on it for 13 months and then starts for the production? Wouldn't there be editors? Wouldn't there be a creative team that Kathleen Kennedy put together to make sure continuity is a thing? And this,
yeah. I mean, we have to assume that didn't happen. Did you see the video that the Star Wars channel released where it's like Secrets Explained or something? It's basically 6 people discussing the film, but obviously they are 150% positive about it. They are over the top. They have to be because they're from the Star Wars channel or whatever.
Oh, really?
And there's a guy on there. I didn't catch the names because I was basically watching it to collect the HD clips. They show a whole bunch of HD clips from the film, and I was like, I can use these in my video now. Nice. Easier on the eyes instead of the blotchiness. And you got this guy who I'm assuming he was involved on the writing team. I don't know, but he said when he's talking about the hyperdrive scene, a lot of people think this doesn't make sense. But, when you think about it, like an X-Wing can't do that kind of damage. It had to be the cruiser. And nobody wants to sacrifice a cruiser in a fight. That is your biggest thing. So really, this was the only situation where this actually made sense. And, Ryan said to us, does this make sense within the lore? And we said, of course it does. Absolutely, within all the films. And I was just listening to this, and I was like, what?
The first thing I thought of was the Force Awakens, when Han does that ridiculous maneuver where I don't know how the hell you could measure or time this. You can bypass the shields by hyperspacing past it and then stopping on a dime to get into the Starkiller base. I'm thinking, okay, that's what hyperspace does. You phase through solid matter and you warp back into normal space. So I'm thinking, okay, there's no way this thing could work because you're going to phase right through the thing. So what I'm guessing then is what this implies is that before you get into that hyperspace window, you accelerate really, really quickly. And that is some sort of pre-sublight scenario where you're getting close to the speed of light.
Right. There's a lot of people who are discussing the science ends of it and whether or not it conclusively makes sense on that end. My argument is less about the science, because obviously I know absolutely nothing about it. It's more about the don't go there, okay? Don't do hyperspace into another ship. Let's just not do it and never have to discuss it actually being a thing that happens, because it's a question we could all ask throughout all the films. Be like, what would hyperdrive into a ship? Like, what would that do? And Star Wars, as an entity, decided to say, we're not going to show you. We're not going to do it. We're not going there. And
well, once you open up that Pandora's box, I mean, this is why I think this is the biggest problem in the whole series, or this movie as a result, destroying all the continuity. Because every Star Wars would be, we have a paperclip, I'm going to launch it at sub-light speeds, and I can destroy a planet with the amount of energy and force of a piece of nickel.
And they can't win this argument because you could be like, someone suggested hyperspace missiles, like literal, a missile with hyperdrive on, and it's like, yeah, why wouldn't that work? And it's like I said in that interview, he was like, no, too small, wouldn't work. And it's like, sorry, like just because you're the writer or you're involved in it, and I know you think you can set rules, it's too late because you've just done this.
Yeah, you don't need a payload. All you need is the actual hyperdrive unit and just aim it at
Yeah.
something, and that would be fine.
And even if it was related to the size of the thing, you could make large empty crafts for cheaper to knock out an entire fleet. How is that not worth it?
It'd be like a cluster bomb that would destroy an entire
Yeah.
solar
Yeah.
system. Just sort of put little thumbtacks.
Because, you know, a lot of people didn't notice this because I didn't really pick it up until I rewatched it. But it's like, yeah, that knocks out like 10 Star Destroyers. It's just boom, 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 boom. And it's like, we've always known that the Star Destroyer is essentially the Empire's equivalent of the I think they're called the Mon Calamari sort of ships, aren't they? The large ones.
Roughly the
Like,
same size, yeah.
Yeah, they're essentially like the equivalents for the teams, like in terms of resources or what their power is, and it's like so 1-for-1 sort of thing. And it's like, yeah, they just did 1-for-10 plus the supremacy.
They just kept getting bigger and bigger ships, and I was like, where do these ships come from?
Yeah, that's another thing. It feels very anime in that regard, whereas like they just keep one-upping everything.
Well, the dreadnought was unnecessary. They wanted show off Poe is a badass, but he's also a recluse, or he's doing things without orders, or he's just a hothead. Whatever, fine. You've established that. Then we have a 3 times bigger ship than the dreadnought, who's already as big, and it just why go through all these? Like, you've done enough in the Force Awakens with a planet-sized Star Destroyer. So now we're going to have the remnants of the Galactic Order, or rather the remnant of the First Order, and they have like a dozen ships, and they're taking on one ship, and you're like, what's the problem? Like, how is this an issue that you can't solve? You have one ship, go very quickly, circle it, launch every fighter you've got. Like, what is the strategy involved?
Like, so many fans suggest things that are just so much better. Like, just crash the ship into the supremacy, right? Like, it can get torn apart as it gets closer and closer. And it's just, because the whole point of it crashing it was to prevent the transports from being exploded, which all of this, right? Like, what we're discussing right now is embedded in this whole scene that doesn't make any sense anyway. But it's like, okay, ignoring all the other stuff, hyper focus on the fact that she is trying to prevent the destruction of the transports. Like, okay, first of all, why isn't she swerving in the way of the actual artillery, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that was dumb. I haven't even said that in part 1, 2, or 3. Like, that's just an example for you. There's so much stuff. Why didn't she then steer the ship towards the actual supremacy? And say, for example, you could picture this scene where the ship itself is like almost ripped in half, or it's got so many holes, so many bits and bobs pulled to pieces, but then it just flies straight into like the center of the supremacy. Maybe not destroying anything, maybe not even ripping it in half, just enough to completely screw everything up. All the people on the supremacy are like, oh my god, like, and there's just fire and explosions, and you could still have your amazingly beautiful scene with loads of different things happening, and the transports are free and clear because she sacrificed the ship and herself. And it'd be like, oh, that's in universe as well, because you can crash ships into each other. That's fine. Well, especially when they're that big.
This brings up still, what was the writing team or the continuity team that Kathleen Kennedy put together? What were they doing? Like, how could they actually look at each scene, let's just say the space battles alone, and say, oh, okay, you have a massive fleet versus one ship. How are they not overtaking them? How are they not overpowering them? How are they still alive? Answer us, give us something. Give us, let the 4-year-old in the audience go, Mommy, why is that ship still alive? Or, how come Poe is still alive? Give us something to understand. And
imagine they watch these new films and then they watch the old ones, and then in the old ones they're like, why don't they use the hyperdrive trick?
Exactly. Yeah. Why not just turn your Y-wing into a weapon of mass destruction and eliminate a planet or a Death Star or whatever?
The shields don't matter. Not to this. This is like, like the Death Star's got its shields up in episode 6. It's like, who cares? Millennium Falcon, hyperdrive right through the center of it.
Yeah, I think Holo is an amazing pilot. He can just turn that throttle all the way down to 0 within a matter of nanoseconds, and just exactly the right speed differential between light and normal speed. Oh, okay.
And yeah, so my point earlier, like I said, like if a scientist said, no, it's possible and this is what would happen, it's like, it's irrelevant. We have to not do it because bringing it up it screws up everything else. And it'll screw up the future as well. The next space battle we have, guess what I'm going to be thinking?
Oh my god. Oh, they have ruined it now. Yeah.
And we'll have, the character that says, oh no, they have a hyperdrive disabling thing on board. Everyone can't hyperdrive now. Damn it.
which is actually part of the EU, which they should have had to
Oh
explain
yeah.
this scenario.
But they'll bring it in now. They need it, you know.
Well, they'll have to. What else can they do?
Hmm.
Every space battle is now irrelevant because it's like, oh, do you have hyperdrive? Use it. Okay, done. And as opposed to, oh, well, we have fighters, we have frigates. No, 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 no. Do you have hyperdrive? Yeah. Who has it? Just Bob. Okay, Bob, you're gonna lose that ship. You're gonna be now a gunner, and if anything gets by, just it won't. But just watch what we're gonna do to your ship.
And this is the thing, because we're just scratching the surface. Like, can you imagine being a character in this universe, right? When they're on the bridge and they're like, "Oh no, the supremacy's here. How do they track us through hyperspace?" You like, if you were in Star Wars, full on understood it, you'd be like, "Well, they must have a device on board." Literally like, how could it be anything else? Because they couldn't have gotten to our exact space by luck with their entire fleet.
And apparently, it's not just a device; it's a piece of software that can transfer to another ship if ever it were to get destroyed. Which then you're thinking that means the hardware has always been there, and it's just a software algorithm that knows what it's doing. And you're like, what? Okay.
But like, if it, right, do you know what I mean? Like, you'd be like, okay, it's got to be a device. There's a device on board, or there's a mole on board. Like, that's what I thought the film was going with at first. A lot of people thought the holder was going to be a mole. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. It would make sense that she's gotten, like, she's somehow managed to, curry favor with her past deeds, but she's now turned to the dark side, or, the First Order side, and that's why everything seems to be sabotaged. And it was going to be Poe destroying her, figuratively,
right.
maybe.
That was a very simple. They could have tied in Finn with that because he's already part of the First Order. Maybe they have some sort of biometric tracking. Maybe they can figure out where he is, whatever in the galaxy, and they're just lying about this hyperspace tracking thing, and they just keep following Finn because they know he's there. So many little things that could have solved. I mean, if you were to fix the details, like the little details, not changing the entire structure.
That's the thing as well. Like, it screws over. It's like the movie screws over the past, like, right? But you can draw a line there, right? It doesn't screw over itself, and it's like, no, it does. Finn being like, hyperspace tracking, that's impossible. And then, like, the following few scenes, he's like, yeah, no, I know where the tracker is. I mopped the area. It's like, whoa.
See, what would have been brilliant though, if when he does actually leave, and then it goes back to supremacy, like, oh my god, the tracker is moving. Or our unit is moving, or they don't say what it is, but it's moving, and then we have to obviously assume it's Finn or something in the ship that Finn is with. And you could point to the medallion that Rose is wearing. You could point to the ship he's in, blah, 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 and then they're like, "Oh, don't tell anyone," or "This is a big secret." There's lots of things we can do to make suspense and mystery work within the existing structure, without changing. Okay, without I don't know. I'm going back to Troy Levitt, who did the 12 fixes video, and I'm going to talk to him on Monday. And he did what I wanted to do originally, because he looked at what was there and said, okay, you spent 700, 800 million bucks. We obviously don't want to take out the Canto Bight scene. He just said, we'll just leave it, but everything around it, we'll just tweak a little bit to make it more understandable. And what he did made perfect sense. And I'm going to hopefully pick his brain about that, because it's what I wanted to do. And since someone already did it, okay, fine. I'll just put it in his hands, leave my creativity at the door because I have other things to do. And just little things, like, just come on, Ryan, just give us the little detail explaining why A follows or B follows A, and why Holder was such a bitch.
We've got Leia going like, hey, check out this device you've never seen before. This means that Rey can find us no matter what. She can track us no matter what, wherever we are. And Finn's like, oh, cool. Next, like, 2 minutes, 1 minute, I want to say like it's 20 seconds. They tracked us through hyperspace. Impossible. And it's like, but we just established that they could do that right there. Like,
maybe they're tracking us with that thing you just pointed to us.
Maybe they've captured Rey. I was like, how is that not a possibility right now? That makes so much sense to me. Like, if I was on board, I'd be like, oh, yeah, they could have Rey. Like, that's probably how they know. And destroy that tracker. Like, we have no choice, Leia.
Is the tracker two-way? Is like, can Leia see Rey and Rey see Leia? Or is it only like Rey see Leia? Like, how does that work?
Well, I didn't focus too hard on the film because there was so many bigger problems. But that little that little thing that she has is the most, like, convenient technology piece in existence. It's like, Rey needs to get back to the fleet. Okay, she has this bracelet that just lets her do it. It does that not sound like a teenager was just like, I don't know. It's like a thing. It just does it. It's like, okay, instead of being like, Ray, we'll meet you in the, blah, blah, blah system. These are our backup planets. You're going to have to see if we've made it to them or not, because who knows what's happening with the first. Just try and think a little bit instead of just going, there's a bracelet.
It is something that makes me, like, I could literally hand this script to a teenager who just took an English course for the first time in their life. They, oh, creative writing. Okay, cool. And they say, oh, like when you read a script, you're like, okay, it's kind of, you can't visualize it very well. You don't know how scenes connect and how they flow. But they'd see some major flaws with, okay, how is this space battle occurring? Why are they being overrun or not being overrun? Why is...
I just wanted to clarify as well that I'm speaking strictly from the films. Like, whenever I reference anything, it's from film knowledge. Just like, I know a bit and bobs about the games and stuff, but say, for example, there was a tracker in the extended universe that was established. I don't know about it.
They do have stuff like tracking devices. They have it's the technology's always just sort of been there. It's never been like, oh, now we can go twice as fast in hyperspace or something like that. It's just no, you just go really fast. You get to where you're going. It's a plot device, whatever. And now that they're giving us details on that plot device, it's now a Deus Ex, pretty much. You're thinking, oh, okay, great. Now we got to explain that, but they don't bother to, or they don't care to, because it's flashy and it's heroic or whatever the drama of the scene.
You start to draw it back, right? So what happens is this stuff happens with the First Order, all this plot's running along, and then they're like, wait, Rey needs to get back to them. How will she? How would she possibly know? And they're like, damn, because Rey would end up going back to the planet she came from and being like, where the hell is everybody? Also, why didn't
she get blown out of the sky when she went to that escape pod thing straight to supremacy? It's like, hey, Kylo, can I please come aboard? Okay. What? Can
you imagine, do you remember when they was remotely in range of the Death Star in episode 4 and they got pulled in by a tractor beam? The Millennium Falcon just pops up right next to the Supremacy and then flies off. And it's just like, yeah, let's not think about that, right? Because that's a bit awkward too. Let's just leave that. Also, I was going to say, I know that trackers exist in the films as well, but they're all, as far as I knew anyway, some form of thing you have to put on the ship, which I'm okay with, because that exists in our live universe, right? Like, I don't see it as too convenient. It's just that when it's like, we can see a ship, therefore it can never escape us now. That seems to be what the new tracker is.
Well, when they're all cloaked and you can just get a really powerful telescope and see some ships over there, and it's like, oh, I guess we should use that new scanner we just got.
I can't believe nobody seems to care about that. I was like, they're supposed to be cloaked and you can just see them with your eyes. Like, are you telling me that? Oh, jeez.
And then, of course, they get the camera angles from Star Trek, and they're in the throne room, and he's like, oh, look at my magic mirror. And
why does he have that set up? I didn't say that in my video. I meant to. You can see it in the first scene. It's just there. And it's like, for what exactly? What does Snoke actually walk over there and go, what's in space today?
Oh, look, there's some ships over there. I wonder how they got there.
Like, if Ryan actually said something like, no, Snoke knew that they were going to catch the rebels and they were going to, have this situation, I'd just be like, God, he's just so inconsistent with power, at least Snoke. He's so incredible, yet so nothing.
I hope it was the idea of male hubris that they're trying to ram down our throats that is our problem with this movie, because there's way too many. Well, aside from Phasma, I was going to mention that I think the only time when Johnson was actually trying to shove it to Kathleen Kennedy was killing off Phasma, because she just keeps dying. And it's like this joke.
I'd love to agree, but Phasma was evil, so if it's the narrative of like,
she was part of the EU, and technically that's been erased, but they kept it. So I'm assuming that it's like, oh, it's a remnant, so we want to just keep bringing it back, but killing it, and like a zombie that's never dead. It's never dead, and we just keep bringing it back, like Kenny from South Park.
Oh, God.
And yeah, it's this big joke, and then we have all that. You made a really funny part of your second video about all the interviews with Gwendolyn Christie, and it's like, oh, my poor girl. As enthusiastic and much as you love the limelight, we just cannot believe a word you're saying, my dear.
If you watch, because a lot of people were like, how could you put a clip from The View in there? And I was like, you're lucky I didn't involve the part where she basically explains when she was younger, she got so influenced by watching Leia in episode 4 and how amazing it was to have such a strong female character, and like how she gets to represent that now. And I didn't want to be too mean to her. I don't want to be too mean. I was like, you're insane. You think Phasma is like Leia? Like, you kidding? Like, oh my god.
Well, Leia just shooting Poe in the face instead of talking to him when she walks in. It's like, what's Poe gonna do? Oh, I'm gonna shoot Leia. No, you're not. You're gonna go, Leia. What are you doing, getting out of your hospital room?
Yeah,
Oh.
they could easily have had this discussion. Why does she need to stun him? Not only that, but it's like, yeah, Leia. Can you imagine? Right, we didn't see this scene, but Leia wakes up, and then she's like, "What's going on?" In a little like hospital outfit, and then Holdo is like, "Yeah, all of our ships are gone aside from this one. We're heading to Crate, as you know. I didn't tell anybody because it's just between me and you. And then we've got Poe." Brain trust that he is, thinks I'm actually trying to kill everyone. So he's done a mutiny and he's currently holed up in the bridge and he's about to hit hyperspace. So if you could just go ahead and blast through the door and stun him, that would be great. And Leia was just like, yeah, all right, no problem. Like, she doesn't even want to talk to him. I was blown away because I don't know about you, but like, I got the impression that they were trying to make Leia Poe's sort of teacher in a way.
By the first thing she does is waking up out from a coma is walk across the entire ship and shoot someone. It's just like, I don't know. Doesn't quite make too much sense. I mean, we can go through every scene and just something is wrong. Either something we could turn off our deductive brain so we don't think about what came before or how things connected, and we still see something on the surface that does not make sense, does not work, and is just a waste of buildup from anything.
Did you agree with the part where I said if you had plucked every person from the cinema at the moment that Leia and Holdo were sort of laughing at the craziness of Poe while letting the transports go? If you'd plucked everyone from the cinema and asked them what the hell's happening right now, do you think they would be able to answer?
If that was the first thing they saw?
Oh, not the first thing. Like, they're watching the film right up to that point, and then you
just
pause.
ask them a question. Okay. Oh God. I remember the scene where she was being very friendly, and they're getting onto the ships, and it's like, okay. Right.
Because you're waiting, aren't you? You're like, someone's going to finish this off for me because I'm so confused.
There's got to be a point to this conversation aside from, well, Finn's kind of a goof, but we like him. It's like, what?
Because you remember all the way up to the point where Poe wakes up and then Leia's sitting behind him. She goes, let me explain the plot to you. And then Poe's like, oh, okay. And then everything, quote unquote, makes sense. Up to that point, the audience is just as confused as him. And I feel like it's like, Ryan, you know that, right? You know that we think that Holdo's evil. It's like, I don't know, man. I just wish I could talk to him personally. I wouldn't even be mean. I'd just be like, can we just go through this?
Oh, God. I don't think he's already resolved himself. Like the stuff that he was saying, like he gave up that impression that, oh my God, I can't believe so many people hate it. Then he says he wasn't in the right context of these comments being tweeted to him. Then he blocked his Instagram comments. Then he did interviews with Collider and what have you. And he's pretty much resolved himself. I think he got his paycheck. I mean, who would want to work on a Star Wars
trilogy? Is he still getting a new one?
Jeez, I have no idea. I think Abrams is going to take it, but it's just bizarre to throw in a random guy on a series in a second part of a series to throw out all the threads and make nothing and have no threads and just say, okay, you've done nothing. The overarching plot has not progressed. And I've created one new character, which I think is Rose. And I've killed a famous, Admiral Akbar character for the sake of it. And that's it. Like, that's all you did. Luke, as far as we know, can come back. Snoke, as far as we know, can come back. Phasma, she's coming back. There's no sense to this anymore. There's no...
Well, I've heard that Ryan's confirmed some of these things in like conversations where he's like, yeah, Snoke died because it was a way for Kylo to blah, 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 blah. And I was just thinking to myself, like, even if Ryan says definitively that Snoke is dead, or he says definitively that Luke is dead, Abrams can bring him back. Nothing stops him from really doing it. So it will be, like, I know, because everyone's saying, like, boycott Star Wars. It's like, I'm fascinated by what Episode 9 is going to do to try and fix this.
It is one of those freak shows that we're watching normal people and they're having a good time. And we're like, well, I'm glad they're having a good time. But we're sitting there in horror and sort of chuckling to ourselves going, do they know how bad this is? Are they paying attention? Do they care? Are they eating too much popcorn? Are they hyped up on too much sugary drinks? Like, what's going on with these people?
Well, yeah, because, I mean, I don't know if you've had them on your Star Wars videos, but I just get comments every once in a while. It's like, can't you just enjoy the film? Like, are you serious right now?
Oh, God, yeah.
Like it?
Why are you being a hater? It's like, listen, I'm not hating. I'm analyzing the thing. Why can't you just enjoy it? Don't you have any appreciation? It's like, listen, not only can I appreciate and enjoy something, I can use my brain. And when my brain starts working, I see problems. That's it. You, sir, are not using your brain and you're enjoying it purely on sensationalism. That's totally fine. But if you cannot answer these questions, then we can't talk. We can't have a conversation.
I was gonna say the unfortunate thing about it is like my channel, I just pick topics I want to talk about, but they all tend to be explaining why something is bad when everyone thinks it's great. That's just how it ends up. But the first series I made was explaining why two games compared were incredible. So I was like, I'll always fall back on that. If anyone says, "Oh, all you do is hate everything," I'll be like, "Nope, I got this. It
I
took
got
ages.
that.
It was nice."
Well, that's how my channel started. I started finding the plot holes in Mass Effect 2 because people thought it was like it's essentially the Empire Strikes Back of BioWare's Mass Effect series. And there's always a big comparison when you have a space opera and why is it better. I found the fans of at least that fandom a little more intelligent, just as cringeworthy, just as biased, just as blinded. But
Hmm.
because games, at least the BioWare games, they're much longer. There's a lot more content. There's a lot more voice acting. There's a lot more. There's like dozens and dozens of hours worth of gameplay. So you can have a conversation with these people. And I was on the forums and I was talking to these people, and they were relatively good. They were still pretty bad. They were condescending terms we use like biodrone or biohusk because they're totally engrossed in the company and they have no idea what's good or bad. So yeah, when the Star Wars movies, even the prequels were coming out, I was like, okay, they could enjoy the prequels for being fun movies for kids that didn't really understand pacing and didn't really understand threads, and there was like a dozen characters. That there was just so many things happening at once,
Hmm.
but it was flashy. And if that's all you're going for, and that's all Lucas wanted to do with his stuff, then great. He has the technology, he has the money. He got caught up in the script. The editors were, I mean, how would an editor keep his job and tell him how bad this movie is, and still make it, still make it through the day? It's kind of sad to see that. But what can we learn from Ryan Johnson's experience and how Disney does things now? Give it to one guy, make sure there's some women in there, and that's it.
Yeah, a lot of people brought it up, and I didn't really take much notice of it at first. But a lot of people were like, "Why is it that the fleet is made up of like majority female fighters?" And I was like, "Is that true?" And I watched back on the opening fight. They panned through all the X-wing fighters. You got Poe, and then female, female, female,
Yeah,
alien, female. And it's like, what the hell?
it's very odd that all these women all came out of nowhere. Now this could be explained on a few levels. You want to talk about genetics, you want to talk about what genetic drift and how appropriation of the species becomes something when I think it was eagles. You're looking at American bald eagles and how the dying of a species, the default is female. So when the genome gets less diverse and starts dwindling, the chances of a male are like 20% or something like that. So I'm thinking, oh, okay, so there's less diversity, or there's less cohesion of genetics of a genome. Okay, fine. There's a lot more women in general. They will be the ones to take up the reins to do whatever. The other issue is, what the hell is the Republic? What are these people? Are they a galactic group of people? Are they just, we don't give a crap, and people are fighting battles and we don't care? We just lost 5 planets, but they didn't bother us, so we don't care. It's this whole idea that there's a whole universe out there, and it's not touched, it's not looked upon. We know bad things happened there because the First Order did things, but we don't know how many there are. We don't know how many groups. I think we learned more in the prequels with the techno race. There's this council room, talking to what was it, the Sith Lord there, and they're all just sitting around in a big round table saying, yeah, we support this, we support doing that, we support building this Death Star. And it's like, okay, cool. What do we got for in terms of culture and politics and groups of people in these new movies? I can't really think of, aside from humans, random colorful aliens, and uh, porgs. I don't know. There's got to be more to the rest of the universe than random aliens and humanoids.
Well, that's the thing. Last Jedi really added nothing to the universe, did it? It was kind of like, like even
I'm
a
trying to
cool
think.
new planet. It's like great. It's kind of a desert, but salt. And
I'm
it's like,
thinking.
okay.
I'm thinking.
It's
Yeah.
like, Porgs are this new creature. The wolves are new creatures to the universe. Like, because in this video I was talking about earlier, you actually have the writer guy I was talking about saying that those crystal foxes are a great piece of world building. And I was just sitting there thinking, like, how are you a writer for the biggest franchise on our planet in terms of cinematic movies and stuff, and you consider those crystal foxes world building? Like, I'm just saying, I think because I'm the layman, right? So I'm like, I don't understand. I'm just, how is that world building?
Okay, I'm gonna take a break and we're gonna take some questions from these guys here. They're asking us some stuff here. All right, what do you and MauLer think about the status quo is essentially reset back to a new hope now? Small rebellion, they even start using the word all over the movie, versus a large empire. And I think you mentioned this in your videos, how they interchange the name rebellion or rebel and resistance.
That's going to pay off in my part 3 because they go back to resistance in the near the end of the film. I think it's a mistake by Ryan. Like, he was writing it out and he literally just used the wrong word.
They're like, oh yeah, is this the newest Star Wars? Are we going back to the Empire again? I can't remember.
But yeah, I guess as to the question, I was mostly okay with going back to it. I just wanted it to be, a reasonable way to get back there, because everybody claims that the new trilogy was supposed to just be the old one, but for young people, a new introduction to the story of Star Wars. I'm all right with that. But, it would have been nice to get there properly, because they don't just pretend the OT doesn't exist. They actually, bring in old characters and they reference the movies and they have it. So it's like, yeah, 30 years ago, all of this did happen. But now we're back to 35 years ago for some reason, in terms of actual plot.
Yeah, that doesn't bother me. Even the Mary Sue elements, I don't really care what elements a writer wants to do. It's how they use it, how they use a Mary Sue. You can get away with a character who's perfect and does all these things, but you have to explain it. You just have to make it reasonable, and I have to believe in what's going on. So if there's a character that can do that, there must be a reason why, an equally a cause for that thing to happen is presented to the audience. That's it. I don't care. If she's, she can pick up stuff and do things and survive for all this stuff by herself and learn to swim and whatever technique she picks up, I'm okay with that, so long as there's an explanation for each thing she does. That's it. That's all people really wanted, I think, is make sense of the world. Say, I can now visualize this idea in my head where there's an old Jedi Grandmaster and he's reclusive and he has all these problems. Aside from, well, he almost killed his cousin, which is kind of out of character, but then he just did nothing the entire
that's
time.
actually, you remind me of something. Me and my friend actually had like an hour's discussion, pretending as though, imagine you did know nothing about any other movie whatsoever and you watched The Last Jedi alone. The film is so beyond confusing if you think about it that way.
If you eliminate all the movies that came before, even the Force Awakens.
Yeah, this is a completely brand new experience. And the funny thing is, I know there's a few people in my life who haven't seen a single Star Wars, and I'm tempted to just record their reaction, or at least talk to them after and record it and be like, how do you feel? How was this film?
that reminds me, I don't know if you recall one of the first videos that Red Letter Media did, where they ask, tell me the character of Han Solo without describing his job or what he does.
Or his clothes or whatever, yeah.
Exactly. That's a very good idea, yeah. All right, any other questions, guys? Let's see what you got for me. If you wrote a question, just rewrite it, and I'll be happy to get to you. Do you think episode 9 should focus on the actual theme, the Force, Jedi dead forever, the First Order giving up, galactic politics, solving Rey's and Ren's personal problems? We're talking about the last of a trilogy of a series. I really don't know what they can do to make sense of all this. They can do literally anything. And so long as it's consistent, I'll be happy at this point, because the bar is so bloody low. They should definitely work with what they were given in The Force Awakens, at least. Something to do with Anakin, hopefully. Why was the lightsaber such a big deal? I don't know. Rey seems to be okay with it now. Bring back Kylo, who was obsessed over it. Well, now it's gone, but it doesn't, I guess we can't do that anymore.
The thing I would say is, if Disney said, yeah, we're going to pay you $1 million, write episode 9. If they said that to you or me right now, or let's just say for the sake of example, they asked both of us to work together to make an episode 9, I would begin the meeting with you saying, I have no idea what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Where does this go? Who knows? What are our components? We've got a struggling, all-powerful First Order. I don't know. It's up to us, really, because the film doesn't make that clear. Kylo Ren, Hux. and the Millennium Falcon with 20 survivors. It's like, well, first things first, we've got to beef up the good guys because they're barely anything right now. So skip about what, 2-3 years, maybe 4, because we got to get everything back in order.
When you have a sequel that defeats the previous movie, then yeah, you start from ground zero. There's nothing else to go to work with. So it's hard to say. Really, anything. I want it to make sense. That's it. Everything else is superfluous to at least.
Because compare it, right? To me and you sitting down, deciding what we're going to do with episode 8, and it's like, all right, let's get everything in terms of our pieces out. We got loads to work with.
Yeah. There's all kinds of plot threads to tie up. There's all kinds of characters to deal with. Yeah, for sure.
I think my goal would be more focused on trying to make sure we've covered everything, and not necessarily in a meaningful way. Like, for example, where did he get Anakin's lightsaber from? We could be like, if we were to bring back Lando, we would assume he went back to Cloud City at the end of the OT. He could be like to Maz, or for example, you could have a throwaway line where he's like, this is bad. I'm self-admitting this is bad, but this is one direction. He would have maybe found the lightsaber. Like when it fell down into that facility, it may have turned up and Lando would have had it. And then he was like, okay, I'm giving it to, I don't know why Maz would have it. What I'm saying is that's what we've got. We got to figure something out. Let's work at this. Instead of just, I can't be asked to work for it. Nah, whatever.
I'm reading some more questions here. Would you introduce fuel stops? No, I would not. Fuel is dumb. Black Empress says, did anyone really think that Disney would gear the new movies towards the loyal fan base when their shtick is to brainwash kids? I'm trying to think about that. I think it's more of a political issue than it is one that they're thinking of their demographic. Obviously, they've screwed over their demographic. If half the people out of 180,000 reviewers on Rotten Tomatoes are any indication, saying that this is a piece of crap. So if they're trying to make money, they're failing in terms of marketing to kids. If China and store shelves in America are any example the past Christmas season. So yeah, I think they're screwing it over the sake of politics, really. I can't really think of why else that would happen.
I want to, because in my videos I make it clear, but I have no choice. I was like, I don't want to talk about politics, but I was like, the film's forcing me to.
Yeah.
How do I like ignore the anti-capitalist message, the slavery's bad message, the rich people are bad message? It's really hardcore.
That somehow got muddled with war is bad and war profiteering is also bad, but everyone does it, so that's just how it is. And you're like, oh, so that's the message. Not capitalism is bad, but actual war is bad.
Have you watched any of Jenny Nichols's channel at all?
No, I haven't.
So she's I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong on this, but I first heard of her because she nailed a critique of Suicide Squad that ripped it to shreds, and then I think she was just a huge Star Wars fan. She was doing great up until The Last Jedi. She mysteriously, like so many people have told you about, really liked the film. Wow. And one of the things that she ends up saying is like the Kylo story is so interesting because he propagates this idea of killing the past and getting over it and all this stuff. But he is the main person that eventually reverts back to his old self, does not learn from the past, blah, 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 blah. And it's like so interesting. And to me, I was just like, really? It just came across to me as like, oh, we reset Kylo because we need a villain still.
Well, I've friends who actually enjoy, that's the only thing they actually appreciate out of the movie is Kylo. And yeah, I would agree. He is the most interesting character. He at least has some substance to him. I don't know if I could take a bratty child man or man-child very seriously. Wannabe Darth Vader and the stuff, the nihilism he purports, and there's something there. But spinning on a dime at the last minute, where the past is dead, kill it, come with me. It's like, oh, well, if you're not going to come with me, I'll just kill everything. Then I was like, oh, I thought we were having a connection here with the character. And nope, because he can't get the lightsaber and it blew up, he wants to kill Rey when he sees her fly in a Millennium Falcon. It's like, okay, that's...
Yeah. And I'm going to cover it in part 3, but like it so frustrates me that they send every TIE fighter after the Millennium Falcon, and they all get destroyed anyway. It's just so dumb. And why is it that they only have about 10? Shouldn't they, like, you saw the fleet, like, why don't you guys have thousands? Like, oh.
You now feel like using your flying machines aside from your big ships. Go crazy.
So silly.
All right, Sixer Mason. Are the First Order struggling? Apparently, they swiftly took over the galaxy when the Republic Senate was blown up. Yeah. Not sure why they're suddenly the dominant force still. I mean, they would be still pretty big. They just lost a massive Star Destroyer, but there are ships still around. Yeah.
I say this alone, right? I love the idea of factions within the universe and different areas being controlled by different people. And someone could be like, "Oh, so you don't like that they just didn't do what you wanted?" And it's like, no. The reason I like the factions thing is because I sit there thinking like, "Oh yeah, this is a living, breathing world. There are people who care about things happening, here and there." And when you do something, it has repercussions. Instead of just it's a sandbox with nobody in it aside from the First Order and the Resistance, and then like some random planets with one or two people on them.
I just noticed our resident co-host UDP is with us, although he's not chatting. He muted his microphone. So, hi UDP. Sorry, you don't want to say hello. I guess you're busy, but that's okay. Thank you very much for joining us in spirit.
Hello.
Oh, there you are.
Sorry, yeah, there's internet things anyway. You guys were kind of coming like like that, so I was trying to square that away. Really,
There's just so much to say.
And as well, I haven't actually seen the movie, so I'm kind of going like, all right, I have no input on this.
Well, I think we've rambled on about the movie long enough. I'll think we'll close up the next 10 minutes with talk about gaming or things that have happened this week. Trying to remember all the cool news that occurred aside from the big news on my channel, which was the mention of Anthem being at the forefront of BioWare's production. They're stripping back on Dragon Age. They're stripping back on all the other things like the Old Republic. So that's kind of like an all-in for BioWare. Yeah, I don't know. This year is going to be pretty weird. It's coming out next year, so they pushed it back an entire year, which is... It's expected. I was expecting an entire year, though, because everyone thought it was going to come out this year early. So I don't know if you're a fan of those types of games, like the what do they call? What are those Destiny clones? What are they called exactly?
Looter shooters, really, we call them, don't we?
Yeah,
looter shooters.
I was going to say, like, I'm the kind of guy who just stays away from buying anything new for the most part and waits for a long time until it's confirmed that it's not horrible, and then gives it a shot. Because you got to be careful with your money these days. Half the time you're buying something that is specifically designed to take more money from you.
That's right. Yeah.
So, like I'm excited for Shadow of the Colossus remake because I love it. It's like that's as far as my interest goes with a lot of new stuff. God of War 4, I'm intrigued.
Right. Yeah, cinematically it looks good. God of War has always been a great game player. It's always been lots of good action.
No, it does look like they're focusing on story now, which is going to be really interesting. I love the idea that Kratos is sort of like introspective about all the really horrible shit he did. Like it was for a reason, but it was still pretty messed up. Like the stuff that he does, ripping people in half.
I still do that, but not as much. I'm a little better at it. There's another news article about Epic Games. They are officially shutting down Paragon. Paragon was a MOBA that they invented about 2-3 years ago, I think. And MOBAs have always been a close game to my heart. They starting with League of Legends. I've been one of those hardcore Dota players back in the day before it was cool on Steam with Dota 2. So yeah, Paragon's going away so they can focus on Fortnite, which is their PUBG competitor. I know these are popular games. I've never touched them, but everyone likes them. So, go where the money is, I guess. Okay. I think those are only the main stories I've got regarding games that caught my eye. If there's any other questions you guys like to ask? Oh, you got some more in the chat there. Okay.
I was going to say, I would assume there's thousands for Star Wars.
They're still talking about Star Wars. You're right. Yeah. Okay. Do you need an astromech droid to calculate hyperspace jumps with an X-wing? That's a good question. I think if you want to arrive safely, yes, but there's nothing stopping the pilot, as Han Solo would say, that before you would get smashed into smithereens or spread across the galaxy, unless you wanted the right calculation to safely travel. So,
do you remember? Did you see? I'm assuming you saw Rogue One.
No, I haven't actually.
Oh well, there's a clip I'm using because it's just plain as day. There's a space battle. The good guys are trying to get out. They all start hyperspacing, but then a Star Destroyer spaces in, and a handful of the actual good guys slam into it and just get destroyed. It's actually Darth Vader's on it, and the interesting thing is, it's like we are shown right there in that just 5 seconds, Star Destroyers can close gaps with hyperspace.
Yeah, right.
So the Last Jedi is over. It's done. It's totally broken. Because this is the thing. That's why I went so hard on that particular point about Admiral Holdo's plan, the whole situation, because that is the core of the movie. That's what everything rests on. That is like the centerpiece. The fact that they are getting chased through space. It is
this
silly.
is, as I've always said about bad movies or bad works of art, at least with stories, all you need is a good editor. All you need is a guy to say, wait a second, what's going on here? And that would have solved, I think, about more than half the problems. Now, with that specific point, you'd have to go to lore. You have to go to a fan. So you'd have like an editor fan or an editor guy who just knows screenwriting and knows continuity.
Yeah, like he's paid to just watch all the movies every day in a row so that he can keep up to date. He's like, I know exactly what's supposed to happen.
Apparently this thing spent 800 million on this thing. So if they could spend an extra 20 grand to hire 3 people for a week or two, say, okay, you're going to be the Star Wars guru, you're going to be the script writing guru, and you're going to be the movie guru. So there's going to be like the guy who knows the EU, the guy who knows script writing, and the guy who knows the movies. And you just figure out what's wrong. And then you get back to me in 2 weeks, and Ryan will hopefully listen. If not, then whatever. No.
So I just had a funny thought. Have you guys seen Minority Report?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. There's a bit in it, like just where you're talking to that as if like you're going to have like several fans in a room. And whenever something happens, like one of the fans just goes, continuity error, and then the little ball comes down, and then it's like, we got a continuity error in this scene.
And that's the thing, man. If there was a new Star Wars film that I genuinely liked, and someone was like, "But there's this continuity error," it would be like, it's all about the context. It's like, well, how bad is it? How bad is this break from the universe? Because it's not binary. As soon as you break one rule, you're automatically terrible. It's like, what did it do? And like I said, this film rests on huge continuity errors. Like, it can't function without taking these sort of allowances, if you will. It's like, no, the Star Destroyers are slower than the Raddus, okay? They just are. And you're like, okay. The Star Destroyers can't hyperspace to catch up, okay? And you're like, okay. The starships run out of fuel very quickly. You're like, ugh. And they're like, okay. And you're like, yeah, okay.
The starships have cloaking ships. Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay.
You can now scan for cloaking ships. Oh, okay.
Aren't Star Destroyers supposed to be quite quick? Because isn't that one of like Han's saying is like you could actually outrun a Star Destroyer? Like that the Imperial ships are always going to be faster than what the Rebels have?
As far as I knew, Star Destroyers were pretty fast. But they're like super slow in the new film.
It's like, oh, sorry, guys, we got the budget on the fuel sector.
30 years later, the technology got worse. Makes sense.
Yeah, we saw some brand new ships in the form of really slow-moving bombers used for aerial drops. But hey, let's use them for space on a really stagnant giant Star Destroyer, which will be just as effective, I'm sure.
Oh, you just reminded me of that scene when Rogue One, when the when the Star Destroyer comes in, that you see that transport ship go boink, and it just like ricochets right off the Star Destroyer. And I was just kind of thinking, like, well done, Transport 612. You could have hyperspaced and killed Darth Vader, you moron.
Exactly. I want to. This is the thing. I want to see what happens when an X-wing hyperspaces through the Death Star, and I'll have the writer dude be like, "Nothing will happen." I'm like, "No. With the rules you just set up, right? Go away. I want to see what happens." And the whole thing just gets nuked, and I'd be like, "Wow, these films are fucking done. It's over."
Right, guys. Any lasting questions? I see a whole bunch more about Star Wars, which lots of caps lock. I'm guessing someone's angry. Doesn't the Star Destroyer keep up with the small blockade in the first shot of A New Hope? Yeah, you're right. The Corvette versus the Star. You're right. The first opening.
Yeah, the Corellian Corvette.
Yeah.
Yeah, it catches up and then zeroes in on it.
Yeah, but actually puts it into its bay, doesn't it? It's
And
like,
the line in the new film is they are smaller and lighter, therefore faster.
Lighter in space. Awesome. That's perfect. Yeah.
well, there's all that friction in space, there's all that air.
And yet he would change nothing about the film. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm going to take that every time I think of him. It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. Everything he wanted is there. Nothing can be removed. Where did the Hutts go? You know what? Who cares about the Hutts? They're just giant, manly, wormy things.
That's the thing, man. Like, where do we look to when we think about the universe building? It's like, well, yeah, that's any scene in the Senate in the prequels where you've got all the worlds, implying that Star Wars is huge, which it should be because it's a bloody universe. It's crazy because that was actually something I wanted to ask you. What do you think in terms of as time progresses? You know how the Phantom Menace when it came out, most people, as far as it was doing well, and then it's sort of like as it just decayed over time, and the prequels have become a joke in most people's minds. But they're still entertaining, and they're still probably the best source of memes in the history of the universe. Like it's insane how they stay fresh. What do you think's the fate for the Last Jedi? Do you think it's going to get to the point where it's a joke as much as the prequels are, or do you think it's just never going to sink below because it'll be propped up?
All forms of modern art are not meme worthy unless they're so over the top and have an aspect of them that we can relate to, and that's kind of the antithesis of what modern art is. You're sort of breaking things down and you're warping them. It's not like cubism or dawdleism or anything like that. We're talking about a blockbuster with high production values that should be easily relatable, but it's not. There are definitely some memes out there. I think my favorite one is Jake Skywalker, but that's not as a result of the movie. That's a result of Mark. And I can only keep thinking of memes related with what Mark said and how he reacted and the interviews and post interviews. It's just, I don't know to feel sad or to laugh but in terms of memes, Yoda and lightning, maybe. I don't know.
The shooting stars one with Leia.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. There's one. Exactly.
Well, there's the Swolo. Well, Ben Swolo, and there's another one.
I always go look at
the Ray.
I always go back to Oral Nuts. Every time I need a joke, they're the best ones to make music or make a Kylo Ren reacts videos are the best for me. So now that
the sacred text, I completely forgot about that. I love seeing that in meme form. The sacred texts.
Now that hyperspeed can be weaponized, they could try building smaller unmanned craft for this express purpose. Exactly, you're right. What do you think
droids to pilot anything in them?
Yeah, remote control. Hey, you know what? I have a little RC adapter here, and I can control a robotic arm, or maybe it's a piece of software, and I hit a button, and it pilots the ship for me. It's like, what?
It's like, who cares about that dreadnought? We have an X-wing with hyperdrive.
Yeah, get in there. Come on, let's go. Start piloting that thing.
I think the next Star Wars is going to be called Hyper Star Wars Extreme. It's like they're just going to go absolutely mental with it. Like it's just going to be carnage because if they actually build hyperspace,
like Ragnarok,
hyperspace weapons. Yeah,
they have all those '80s vibes, all the colors. You know that funny Ragnarok trailer that I was like, oh, I got to see that now because they pretty much took the techno or the synth sounds of the '80s and made it into an attractive rainbow-colored trailer. Yeah, for sure.
They could actually do it the biggest reset ever, whereby the hyperspace wars now has actually like reset the entire universe for Star Wars now to basically rebuild. Like there's just been this massive battle between the First Order and the Republic, and it's just completely killed everything. Other than like a few surviving things, it's called Hyper Star Wars. It's like, oh, it's a Star Wars, Hyper Star Wars now.
But then they're going to start light speed ramming actual stars. They're not going to hit planets. They're just going to blow up the entire solar system.
Oh yeah, they could get rid of everything that way. Oh no, we need to stop thinking. this film is getting hit.
Giving them ideas.
Because like the opening line of the next film will be every single item to ship to planet to person has been fitted now with a cloaking thing that prevents hyperspace damage. It's like back to normal. Good. It was just the Last Jedi that did it. That was it.
This massive, almost literal lampshade on this plot device, which has caused this huge problem in the continuity of the entire universe. We have to literally drape something over every ship. Yeah.
But yeah, you said that it's probably not. It's not a huge amount of meme potential, but like, do you honestly, think as the years go by that most people will just calm down and agree that the Last Jedi was pretty terrible?
Well, that will happen just because we'll be the ones that are talking about it. It's the same thing that happened with the prequels. Blade Runner wasn't a big hit, but it had that cult following. So yeah, for sure, it will be remembered as a ridiculous piece of postmodern nonsense. Really,
I feel like I probably need to explain it if you don't sort of agree with it, but I feel like it's killed the modern trilogy because The Force Awakens gave it a shot, if you will. And it's just like this one has taken a huge, it's like a huge gut punch to the investment a lot of people had in the modern.
Even the critics, or the people that I talked about The Force Awakens, they will see it as its own standalone thing and say, yeah, this is a consistent movie. It makes sense. Fans of the series who are critical will say, well, this is just what we had 30 years ago. Nothing new. You're not doing anything new when they have an entire extended universe to pull from, including Ryan Johnson, who did pull one of those books, which was post or pre 2010, which is effectively no longer canon, but because he's the writer. And Phasma is also authentic as well. Like all these silly things that, well, they're not real, but because he used them, now they are. It's just so he's cherry picking stuff from the EU. So they could keep doing that. It's like they have the right. It's hard to say. I'm not a futurist in this example, but in terms of media, yeah, it is something that will not look kindly. And if I were to be like a critic 50 years from now and analyze space opera genres, like I can keep watching The Fifth Element over and over again. I can keep watching or reading. Pick the culture. Was it the Foundation series? Babylon 5, The Expanse, which is new, Star Trek, even Flash Gordon back in the day. I mean, there's something to be said for the timepieces and why they're still there. Star Wars should have been and always should have been a Joseph Campbell reimagining in the future. And it's not necessarily science fiction in that regard. It's more of a sci-fi thing, but that's fine. That's what a space opera is anyway. So, yeah, hard to say.
What did you think of the point that Yoda was out of character?
Ah, jeez.
I'm not sure, honestly, because I've heard the arguments and a lot of people really do feel that way, but I was like, watching Empire again, I was like, I understand the whole he becomes very reserved and very, wise once the facade is dropped. But like, in Return of the Jedi, when the line that makes me think, is when he says, when 900 years old you reach, look as good, you will not. Like he's having a bit of a joke. It's Yoda.
That's probably, I hope that's just part of his personality, that he's just, because he's a Force ghost and he's like, hey, cool, I'm alive. And I don't know if Force ghosts are actual entities or they're just remnants of the entity. So it makes sense in that regard, but it's just out of tone. Like when you see this scene, he's like, why are you hitting him over the head? Why
and blowing up that tree was just... Can you imagine the nuns in the morning?
Yeah.
They're going to be like, what the hell?
Like, first off, Luke already destroyed a whole hut, which they were busily repairing the previous day.
Well, they went crazy over the hole in the hut.
Yeah.
Ripped the whole thing off.
Now he just blew the whole thing up. Now he's lighting a whole ancient temple on fire. And these quiet little nuns are like, what the hell's going on in this island?
I don't know what they'll be defending anymore. I thought the tree was basically it, right? Aside from that weird dark side hole in the floor.
I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, guys, I can't really guess what this is going to be in the future. So
I'm eagerly awaiting episode 9. It's going to be fun.
It will be entertaining. I will give you that for exactly the wrong reasons. Yeah.
Yeah.
All these questions, guys, come on. You got all these questions coming all at the last. We're about to go. Like,
I mean, I got free time. Are you sort of rushed to you? Or?
No, but I didn't want to take up too much. I know it's pretty late for you guys. And
I mean, I'm going to be up late anyway because I got editing to do.
Oh, I know. That's what I mean. You got those gigantic hour-long videos to put together. And if you guys haven't seen them yet, he's already done the first two. First, see the link in the description, which I've already supplied to. That's the main one where he rants, which is great. But it's the other two where he calms down a bit, gets some comments, answers some questions, and goes step by step. This is really detailed. This is if I were to take a playthrough of Mass Effect and just cut it up into pieces as opposed to just the plot. Like he goes scene by scene. It's crazy.
Yeah, I appreciate the description. Like I said, though, I'm really happy to stay for a bit longer. It's okay.
Okay. Well, we got a few more questions. If you don't mind answering them, that's fine.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Valerian and Laureline, so I don't know what those were like. I know that one was a space opera. I don't know about Laureline, though.
No, I haven't seen either of them either.
I know they were French. I know they spent crazy amounts of money, and they did not do well, unfortunately. What can they do to make Finn interesting as a character? His original story about being a rebel stormtrooper had potential. Is he too obsessed with Rey? Well, there's nothing wrong with being obsessed with another character, whether it's a romance or a friendship. It's a sense of belonging. It's a sense of what he needs. That's what Finn is. He doesn't know where he belongs the same way Rey doesn't know where she belongs. So that's fine. they can work with that totally fine. Again, whatever this movie was about, kind of forgot about that or tried to throw it to the side. There's nothing stopping them from bringing that back. There's nothing that they can do with that.
My huge thing with Finn was I was just like, it's crazy to think that he's an ex-stormtrooper, because the Last Jedi really doesn't, that's not really something that even has any kind of relevance aside from his janitor knowledge.
I don't understand why he was a stormtrooper. He says, I worked in the janitor, so they just pull him out of janitorial duties. Like, okay, here's a gun.
Yeah, I don't understand that. That's more of a Force Awakens problem. But again, like,
Yeah.
why would you humanize a stormtrooper to do nothing with that? I just picture this scene where they're forced to wait for something. It could even be Rose, right? I'm giving this chance to Rose, of all people, the hyperspace travel to Canto Bight, where they just break down. He gets to have just a little chance to explain what it's like to be a stormtrooper. Just that alone.
Sitting at the bar for a good 30 seconds, please. Like you're there. Chill out, talk about things. And he was about to play craps or something, I think. Or he was playing craps, and it just sort of
because Rose does it. Rose is like the only character in the film that actually explains a history and gives herself a little bit of history, but it's just like, we don't even know this person. We've met her 5 minutes ago. Why can't you get Finn to do it to her? Finn basically sees something that triggers a memory of his past life as a stormtrooper and stuff, and then he talks to her about it. Because she thinks he's a traitor, right? And so the context can be he's trying to explain why he does what he does, why he approaches everything that he does. And, he's completely disenfranchised from groups. He doesn't want to be a part of anything. That's the whole point of him, as far as I knew. And then, he gets reinvigorated because he respects the resistance, quote unquote. I assume that's what they were going for, but it's just so badly done. Why couldn't we just have a scene where he's like, yeah, the First Order are rough, they do blah 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 blah, but, and then maybe provide something that makes it so that it makes sense
that would have
fight for them.
That would have had depth to the issue with Kylo wanting to change the Order or change something, and having the Order say, okay, we go around killing villagers and what have you, now we're going to start helping people. And that would have been something that he would have thought about when he's on the ship. And Phasma is not a crazy lunatic, maybe, who wants to kill every deserter. And says, no, we've changed now. That would have been a nice element, because then you have that question of, should I stay or should I go? Because I don't know what to do anymore. And I've just discovered that it's no longer as bad as soon as Snoke dies, which is kind of ridiculous because you can't really change an entire organization because the leader's gone instantly. So that would have been interesting, but not enough.
I gotta be honest, I liked Finn from Force Awakens, and I like him. I thought he was an interesting little guy, and I just thought that if you just focus on him a bit more, give him some flesh that I can connect to, and it's just you don't get anything in Last Jedi at all, really. He's really, really thin.
Okay, another question. Is anyone excited about the potential new Dune film by Denis Villeneuve? I love Dune. I've seen the made-for-TV movies. I've seen the original. I love that series. I think it's a crazy, horrendous sci-fi, or rather, it is more science fiction than sci-fi. But
I'll be on board with seeing that. Yep.
Yeah, Frank Herbert is fantastic. Yeah. Dune remake, yes. Postmodernist garbage? No, it will not. I doubt they can do that. It's kind of like taking I.N.M. Banks or Asimov and making that postmodernist. I can't see anyone approving of that if they've ever read or know anything about science fiction. So I wish there was a KOTOR 2 movie. So do I. I mean, Revan was pretty much the go-to for next step. If it was the next step for games, and then became a thing in the EU, it'd be like, oh, look, we have all these comics and books. We'll just take some of these and put them into a movie. That would have made sense.
I just can't believe that they had the original cast and they just didn't do a single scene that we would actually want to see from them together, aside from Luke talking to Leia for 5 seconds. And Luke with R2-D2 is probably my favorite thing that they did, and it's so small.
That is the best part of the movie. That little moment where you see Luke defeated and R2 comes up to him, this little droid, and he just displays that message, and everyone's like, "Oh my god!" If that
right in the heart.
Yeah, if that doesn't get Luke, nothing will, and obviously it does. And he grudgingly talks to the girl who came all this way.
Which I think everyone forgets, by the way, is that he literally says to her, "I'm going to give you 3 lessons, and the reasoning behind it is to teach you why the Jedi need to end." So you know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, he does give her some training. It's like the training is meant to essentially not train her. That's its goal. And it's not even he gives her one lesson, right?
The dialogue from Luke is so off. I mean, as soon as he said laser sword, I was like, whoa, what the hell is he talking about?
Unfindable.
Where did that come from?
Yeah, it's weird. It really is weird.
Luke's kissed Leia's forehead, but the lightsaber went through him. Yeah. Who the hell knows how force projection works?
Yeah, that's a moment of the writers being like, "Oh, shut up."
And he manifests dice, which Leia can then hold,
and then drop to the floor, and then Kylo can pick them up, and then they disappear moments after Luke has. I was just like, "What?"
Yeah,
what is
it's maybe he's actually tracking her hand and then mentally tracking her and then making sure the dice still. Oh God, no!
The dice lasted longer than Luke did. Like,
Yeah,
why?
Does that make sense? How? Where? When? What was he like thinking to himself? Remember where I put the dice while I'm fighting my cousin, and I'm levitating on this rock, and then I do my matrix moves. Like how does I have no idea. It makes absolutely no sense.
He literally sustained an item in existence after he was not in the world anymore. Like that's like, whoa, that is some crazy power Luke's got there.
And he was like, "Oh, I used too much. Guess it's time to go." It's like, wait a second. You knew how much juice you've got left before you die? I mean, was that
like the shot of him looking at the binary sunset as he accepts that this is where he dies? I was just thinking to myself, like, let's just snip that right out of the film and go find a better film to put that in. It's not bad, that bit, but like it's just everything that leads up to it is just like, ugh.
It was one of those little details that pissed me the hell off, especially. Okay, Luke does nothing the entire movie. You have to realize this. He does nothing. He gives Rey nothing. There's no MacGuffin. There's no.
Have you forgotten how he was defeated by Rey? That's something.
He was already defeated. he already.
I knew when I saw that, by the way, for the first time, I was like, oh my God, fans are going to lose their minds from this. Like, you just you had Rey beat Luke in a fight after not letting him fight anything. Like, oh God, no, what have you done? Why couldn't you have it so that he beat her and then he goes to like swipe at her and then has a realization like, oh God, like I haven't changed. I'm still like,
yeah.
Why not that? You just circumvent it and Rey actually manages to lose a fight for once. Wouldn't that be crazy?
He throws her on her ass and he's like, what am I doing with, like, why did I just, like, I can't hurt her. She's important. And then Rey, like, I don't know, knocks him down or something while he's not paying attention. Like, yeah, totally fine.
Because she could give him the same look that Kylo gave him.
Like, oh God!
Within
traumatized the man again.
That's kind of what I'm getting at. Like within the film's own storylines. Like, wouldn't that be a good idea?
That would be very good. Yes, but because I'm thinking of it comically now, because that's all Ryan can do is try to make a joke out of everything. It would just traumatize him, and he'd just hide in his hut all day. We had a first scene in episode 6 that shows Luke grown. Yes, we do. That's true.
Just could talk forever about how much I love the OT as well.
yeah, they're very well done. I try to shy away from the second one just because the plot is not as solid as I'd like, but for entertainment value, for continuation, it's fantastic. It's as if it's
like about Empire. Eh?
Yeah, it's like a love letter, really. You're saying, okay, you like the first one, we're going to do something special for you, and we're just going to go. We're going to get everything you liked. We're just going to double it, and we're going to have some fun with all the side characters. That's all they did, and yeah, it was good.
Yeah, because there's no real war being fought in the second one, is there?
It's a big side plot. Yeah, it's just a big side story that.
That's why people compare it to the Last Jedi. It's like, see, it's kind of the same thing. It's like, not really. This is every good guy left on this ship.
I like how they compare the Luke being a recluse, and they compare it to Yoda or Ben or whomever. It's like, well, no, I mean the Empire was
the difference between running away and hiding.
Yeah, like he got scared because of what he was about to do, and he thought he was an evil man, and he ran away. Whereas Yoda was barely got out alive. Same with Ben. Everyone else got slaughtered. It's like, oh, I guess I should hide now. And luckily, a bunch of misfit rebels came by and saved the day. All right, guys, come on. What another question here? What expanded universe character you would love to see in Star Wars movie? Exar Kun, no question. One of the most awesome.
Correct me if I'm wrong, because I might be wrong on this, because I don't even know it. But is Thrawn an extended universe character?
Darth Thrawn?
No, he's like a high-ranking Empire officer. Everyone loves him. He's blue, as far as I know.
Oh, the guy with the blue eyes, or the red eyes. Sorry.
Yes, the canon.
I'm sure, because I've heard a lot about everyone wants to see a movie for him, and I was like, yeah, it looks cool from the basic assessment I heard about him.
Yeah, he's in Rebels.
Oh, I haven't watched Rebels, so I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't. All the kids shows I don't know. I just know the good deep, more adult oriented stuff I like. But yeah, it's the same fanaticism with Akbar. I think it's like the same level of obsession. Only one's in the movies and one's in the TV.
Why was he in the film, man? Why did they bring him back? What was the point? Have him be dead when you start the new trilogy.
Oh God, yeah, that was an insult. Really, you literally do nothing with him. You mention him, you show him in like one or two scenes.
I actually missed it on my first watch when she said Admiral Akbar was dead. I don't know why when I was watching, I just didn't really register it, and it was only like the second time around I was like, "Holy crap! They just killed him like that."
Yeah.
It's like, whoa.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things you want from the extended universe or the previous movies. And the reason why I say Exar Kun is he's a very unique Jedi who is both light and dark, very similar to Revan, but Revan would be his own thing. And that's why I didn't say Kreia. Kreia is also very similar. She's my favorite, perhaps my favorite female character in all of video gaming, just because she's so deep and she's all of these things, and the plot revolves around her and you and the exile and Revan. So you can't just reduce that into a movie. You would just kill it. Movies are too short, and even if you were to do like a mini series akin to like Game of Thrones, it might work. Yeah, I could see it happening that way, but still, the game is already there. The Exar Kun stuff is already there, and it's just like it's always about philosophy of the Force. It's always about the purple Jedis or the gray Jedis. It's always about what does it mean to be this kind of person. So just because you have mystical powers, it's really you're basically reading science fantasy. So it's not a stretch of the imagination. It just happens to use a big IP that is so fertile for characters and ideas. And I wouldn't say it's as big as like Conan or any of the other fantasy stories, but it's because the popularity is behind it. That's why it got big. The same thing with those ridiculous Star Trek novels or novellas. Really bad writing. Some of them are okay. There's some comic book writers in there as well. But because the fandom took it into a new direction, the books are kind of bad. And Star Trek is really science fiction. It's not sci-fi. So yeah, you kind of think about where a story could go or where a bunch of new characters can go within a world. And Star Wars is much more interesting because it's dirty. It's unknown in a lot of areas. It's very specific, whereas Star Trek is kind of everyone's happy, everyone's positive, and everything's ideal. So you have to create new conflicts for the sake of it. Klingons will still be warlords and brutal, but they're not going to start attacking the Federation. They're not going to do all these crazy things. So yeah, there's some things which I can see working in a movie format just because of the depth of a character, and some things which would not work from the EU. Which
it's interesting that all these extra characters are officers in the first the Empire, and it's like they could have done something with Hux, couldn't they? He could have been interesting.
I thought he was pretty intimidating in the first movie, and all of a sudden he's the clown. And I don't know why that was. I thought your comment on, was it Grand Moff Tarkin?
Yeah.
He was higher on the ladder than Vader, so Vader would respect that. And I thought that was kind of cool. It's like, yeah, exactly. There's a hierarchy. Vader's part of that hierarchy. Yeah. He's not like usurping everyone. No, he's not stupid. So yeah, I liked the idea of organization, which is kind of counterintuitive to the concept of being a Sith, because the Sith are against order. They're against all these,
but they're not Sith. Remember?
Yeah. Well, in regard to the first few movies, they were. So, you're trying to understand what the Force was, and I don't think Lucas did a very good job with the Force in general, because when you hear one of his interviews, and I think it was 95 or 98, where he talked about how love is not passionate. It's not desire. It's like, well, that's part of it, but he wasn't talking about that kind of love. He was talking about compassionate love as opposed to all the other aspects. And this is what the games deal with, especially KOTOR 1 and 2, where you have Jedi falling in love. You have Jedi who want to have families. The Jedi Order shuns that. So there is a flawed system which you can work with in literature so well. You can create all these flawed characters that have all these arguments, and they jump around between the light and the dark, whatever that means. Like Jolie Bindo was one of the better ones. Revan, of course, is the biggest one. Kreia, of course. So yeah, that's what I thought Kylo was going to do, but no, he just went back to being evil because Sith is everything's meaningless. It's all nihilistic. Who cares?
What did you think of the dialogue I offered for the talking comparison? I was trying to go for like, it felt really, when I wrote it, I was like, this feels like it is actually old, you know, like it's not too surprising in terms of a dynamic conversation, but
as opposed to Hux, yeah. Well, anything was better than that mama joke.
yeah.
So, yeah, obviously, but to entertain that idea, because even when I was doing my my rewrite, I was like, okay, well, let's imagine for the fact that this gigantic battleship looks at one lone X-wing and just sort of stares. It's like looking at a dragon looking at an ant, right? You're like, okay, he doesn't crush it instantly. What does he do? Oh, he wants to talk to us. Oh, this should be entertaining. So he would have to be like on a good day or something. Oh, there's nothing else in our retinue today, so let's open the channel. Yes, of course. And yeah, have a little chat. And he's like, we're going to destroy you. You realize that? We're going to kill you if you're really nice, and if you're not, we're going to destroy you right now. So yeah. that was totally fine. Yeah.
And it's interesting. It's like Hux makes it clear that he wants him dead, absolutely. And then once he realizes he's being insulted, he actually demands that they kill him. So it's like, why didn't you just shoot him to begin with? It doesn't make sense. So it's like, I was interested in the idea that it's like, how do we get around this? How do we make it so that you need the integrity of the character to be that there is no compromise. We will kill them, but they also want them to have a conversation. It's like, well,
yeah. How do you do that exactly?
The concept of surrender, isn't it? You're like, surrender, and we will not, have the battle, but you'll still lose.
That's what I came up with. It's like, okay, how do you have a target that is so easily painted in front of you when you have every weapon available and there's nothing else aside from this little ant? I surrender. Oh, he wants to surrender. That might be interesting. That might be fun. Do we need any information? What does he got? Does he know anything we might need? And those are the questions going through a commander's head. It's like, okay, well, we got some intel from a rebel or a guy who's branching off. Why is that? Let's find out. And he's talking remorsefully. He's trying to bide time. He's trying to do all these things. Like, I have the plans. I'm going to transfer you some data. And maybe he does a stupid thing. He sends them some Porg videos or something. I don't care. He just sends data to them and they get it. And it's like, what the hell? And then by that time he takes off, which you've already talked about as being ridiculous, but that's fine. And give him his little moment. He's a hotshot pilot. He can dodge 30 laser batteries, turbo laser batteries, just shooting him down, and because he's small and fast or whatever, fine.
And he's Poe Dameron, isn't it?
Exactly. He's a main character. He can't die.
Because I'm totally okay with the idea that it's like, this is a thing, everyone gets killed who's the no-name soldiers, but like when you do our hero who's put all of his stats into agility and intelligence, it's like, he's gonna get through it. And you're like, yeah, and that's the part where you can just you let that's what I think of when you say turn your brain off. You're like, let's enjoy the fantasy that this guy is capable of this. Indiana Jones style. He is capable of this.
I think that's the general attitude for the current Star Wars movies is, how does Rey do this? It's fun. It's exciting. She just can. She doesn't even know. That's the thing.
She's got 10 points in every stat.
She
can't fail.
The analogy between a game was that because Luke was the everyman, he is starting at level 1 and you see him progress, whereas Rey is a cheat code and you just hack yourself to 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. She's already ready to go. There's no continues. You don't need continues. She never dies. So,
Rey's like I said, man, New Game Plus, isn't she?
Yeah,
she's New Game Plus to Skywalker.
That actually, that sums it up. But I was just gonna say, like, the fact it bugged me so much when she's just like, "Okay, Chewie, I'm gonna go pop into the First Order for a bit. Pick me up when I'm done." Yeah, okay.
Did she say that?
No, not literally. But my point is, like, that's how the scene runs. Like, what she literally says is that, "Wait for my signal to pick me up." Right?
Really?
But the actual casualness of it, to be like, yeah, this is the most horrifying force in the world right now, this giant monolith ship followed with a fleet of the most like damaging starships that literally when you see one of them means you're in trouble, right? I'm just going to pop over there quick. It's like, how? Why do you think that's possible? Oh, that hurt my brain so much. And like I said, she lands and gets caught. They open like those little handcuffs, and she looks at him like, what? Why would you expect anything else? But, you know, she does get to leave whenever she wants. She just leaves.
And there's absolutely no explanation how she gets on the Falcon. Zero.
Well, we get Hux say she took Snoke's ship.
And then somehow got to the Falcon? Really?
It's a really, really bad piece of exposition because it's implied that Snoke has some kind of like emergency escape ship in his room, and that's what she took.
Okay.
We never see it, of course, but Hux just say, I think he says that she took Snoke's personal ship, and like it's implied to be in the room or some shit.
It's
really bad.
That is, yeah, well, that's another type of bad, but probably not as bad as what we've already been discussing. So.
I will take throwaway lines of exposition over nothing. Like it's a step up. It's just bad still. It's in the realm of bad.
Oh, that's good. It's not as horrific as I recall compared to what we already know. But yeah, this is better. Okay. Context matters, yeah. What do I think of Lex? Man, that was such a trippy old sci-fi made-for-TV series. Or are you talking about the original made-for-TV movie? I'm trying to remember. Because that one was trippy enough, and then the series came on. I think it was like 9 or 10 episodes, and they tried to bring it back, and it was okay. It's bioorganic ships and some sort of planets where they harvest your organs, and that's how you're sentenced to this sort of execution. Yeah, I'm trying to remember most of it. It's weird. It's really weird. But yeah, it was cool. I mean, like really weird, cool stuff like Farscape and was it Red Dwarf? Even though it's more of a comedy, those are great. I think those are really good.
Yeah, with how long it takes to deconstruct this 2-hour movie, there'd be so much to say about all these shows because they super long and have all the different things. Because I was going to say, like, have you seen Farscape?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
that was fantastic.
I really liked it. Well, I was going to say comparable. Talon, the ship, does the equivalent is Starburst, isn't it? Inside a larger Imperial style ship. Carrier. And I felt like that one, it basically just nukes on the spot, right? Because it goes to activate it, but it's because of the surroundings. It can't, blah, blah, blah. You know, it didn't ruin the universe is what I'm trying to get at, because you have to get it inside and then do it, is kind of what's implied by that scene. Like, it didn't bother me, is what I'm saying.
Well, it's so weird and so out there that you sort of have to get into the vibe of, okay, this is how they're taking things. There's all sorts of weird technology that we can't even wrap our heads around.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, they're living ships, aren't they? And Talon's a cross between a living ship and a...
There's details like a worm that cleans your teeth. I mean, it's just bizarre as hell. So you sort of have to give that to them and say, okay, great, cool.
Yeah, the dentic in it. I have a lot of that series in my memory. I don't know why. I guess I loved it.
It's so crazy, and it's not only for shock value, but it's not just for the sake of shock value. They have it, and it really works because, oh my God, this guy is drilling into someone's brain. Now he's in his head. Now he's always been in his head. He's having a dreamscape. He's traveling through time and space. Like, what is going on? So when you have weird elements like that, you can then play with themes and concepts in science fiction that you normally wouldn't if it was just a mundane.
Yeah, they have so many crazy episodes, like, you know, characters swapping bodies, or do you remember there's an episode, I think it's season 4, where they eat food that connects them permanently until they can they could kill each other if they like do something. I can't remember. I was just like, what? This is, and you know what it is? It's just like, let's have some fun with this.
Yeah. But once you understand that, and that's the point, then it's totally cool, and that's why.
And then you got Last Jedi. That's like, listen to us. We have very serious, interesting content with lots of lessons about life.
Like kill yourself.
Kill your family. I can't get over that.
Doesn't matter. It does. Nothing matters. Just whether you're dark or good, or you're just a guy. It doesn't. Nothing's going to happen.
Oh yeah. What are your expectations for the Solo movie?
I have heard people who have gotten screenings have said some good stuff.
Oh.
So I mean, that's nothing spectacular, but who knows what their test groups were originally. So maybe they found the right test group or the right individual.
That's the other thing. I wonder if The Last Jedi tested well.
Oh, there's a good question. I think their main test is how much have we made overseas yet. So
Yeah.
that's their main test. So you know what? If they've done reshoots over reshoots, that means something was wrong big time, and they have to fix it. Now, what that means, what wrong means, is anyone's guess. So
Yeah.
we could think that a good thing, we could think that a bad thing, but I like individual people who are just pulled off the street because it's the layman term, the layman observation. It could be good. I'm not as pessimistic because again, this is its own thing. This is independent. They're going to have stupid things like the Kessel Run and how they got the dice and all that
Well,
crap.
you heard about how they wanted to hire, like, they brought in like an acting coach because of how like it was sinking horribly, the main character, like unable to act or something. I was just like, oh no.
You know what? They can spend as much money as they want. It's still going to be something to see. Because
Yeah.
if this thing flops, and they have like, what is it, a movie a year or 2 movies a year?
That's what they're planning in the movie. Yeah, they're just going to, even if they are good, people are going to get bored of Star Wars.
Yeah, so they better know
what
what they're
about
doing.
superhero films. They're still going.
Well, Marvel's a bit different, and I know they're owned by Disney, but they're creatively their own entity. And if someone messes up with that, like they did with the DC universe, then just forget about it. So I'm hopeful. I'm always hopeful for fun little independent movies, or sorry, not independent movies, outside of continuity stories. So they can do crazy crap with that sort of character. And if you look at some of the lore for scavengers and traders, they're even in the old Republic games, they're very fun and very silly. So they're going to have a lot more fun, I think, as opposed to being, which I think is what Star Wars is all about. It's supposed to be a blockbuster popcorn movie. It's not supposed to be this serious, dramatic story. So I think it should be okay. So I'm not. I never try to put my expectations on stuff like that too high. Anyway.
Yeah, I'd agree.
And you've also got the Ben Kenobi movie coming out as well.
If they don't hire Ewan McGregor, that's going to piss everyone off.
That's going to be weird.
They haven't actually.
I can't see them hiring him. No, I can't see them doing that. That doesn't make too much sense.
You don't think they will?
Why would they do that? He's obviously older, but maybe it's like a flashback scene and we see him in the present and he thinks back and.
Well, I'm assuming they want to tell the story of what happened between the prequels and the OT, right?
Ah, jeez.
Which means he's pretty much the perfect age for that.
Just Obi-Wan Kenobi just sat in a cave going do 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 do.
Yeah, that's the thing. What if he sat in a cave? Did he go on a crazy adventure with all new characters? Disney's going to tell us.
Yeah, I can't see myself getting too invested in that.
No, me neither. But if they're going to do it, just give it to Obi-Wan, Ewan McGregor, just because I'll have at least some investment of like, oh, I'll go see him be Obi-Wan again, because I actually like him in the prequels for the most part. He did try his ass off, and he really liked the original trilogy too. So he had sort of an investment in trying to make a good film. The dialogue didn't agree with him, though.
All right, guys, any other questions? If not, I'm going to say goodnight to these two gentlemen because they've been very patient with us, and I do appreciate you all. I do appreciate you all for coming out and asking these wonderful questions. What is the best review of The Last Jedi? Well, I would have to direct you to our conversationalist here, Mr. MauLer. He did a sparkling review, as rant-filled as it should have been, because that's how you should feel when you exit the movie. You should be full of rage, and and have a picture perfect memory, essentially, because there's no other way he could have done it.
It's been a long time since I've actually gotten angrier. It like festered, you know what I mean? Like I was sort of winded by the first watch of the film. I was kind of like, something's wrong. Something's really wrong.
It didn't, because I don't really care too much about Star Wars because it's just a kids movie or just a fun. Like the movies are for kids. I'm like, okay, they really screwed up here. As opposed to if I had played a BioWare game where there's a 3-part series and you import your save games and things are different. Like that messed me up big time. So the movies, I'm like, it's a movie. 2.5 hours. I had a soft drink. I'm okay. Not a big deal. What do you think about the fact that most sci-fi settings have one united human federation instead of different nations? I'd like to see more different factions for humans and aliens. There's an interesting question about diversity within a Federation of Planets scenario. Well, the scale is much different in Star Trek than it is in Star Wars. Star Wars is the galaxy, everything. Star Trek is just a section of it. So you're talking about entire civilizations being extremely diverse and connected with technology and culture and what have you. There's obviously more detail in Star Trek because it's a harder science fiction, but there's less in a Star Wars universe. So unless you go to the books and see it, you won't know it's there. So the lack of it, I mean, space is very big. So I can't really say it's bad, but because it's specific to a universe, then if only it matches the goal of that piece of fiction, should they elaborate on the size and scope and diversity of a peaceful or group? Actually, it could be an evil organization commanding the majority of the forces. Alpha Centauri the movie. Oh, I would. Yes, I'm a big fan of the Alpha Centauri game. That would work very well. You can just star anyone. I wouldn't care. Just pick every faction. Put all 8, 9 factions. Put the 2 alien factions in there. Fantastic. I would love to see that. It would work better as a miniseries, but a movie could possibly be very cool. Yes. What are your thoughts on Dragon Age being rebooted? You know what? I have no idea. I had no idea they were rebooting that. I think it's a horrible idea. This is as if Bryan Johnson rebooted. Well, I guess he technically did reboot Star Wars in that regard because he killed it all. But no, you don't piss off your fan base. You don't piss off your fan base if you're Suikoden and you're from Konami and you just reboot that. You don't do that with longstanding it's like rebooting Mario. Not to say there's much continuity in Mario, but why would you change the design of Mario? Why would you change the design of Peach? Why would you change the design of all these things? So they haven't written themselves into a corner. And you do that with Mass Effect. You don't do that with Dragon Age.
It's because Mike Laidlaw left, hasn't he, though? So the creator of Dragon Age.
Yeah, I know.
Now, so.
But I mean, the series is bigger than him. As awesome as he was, as big as he was of the production, that is a big hole. But I want to know the story of why that is. Yeah.
Like I'm kind of going. I know I'm theory crafting here a little bit, but it's like with Casey when he left in 2014. It's like he was working on Anthem, and any ideas that he had for Anthem, well, they could have all been thrown out. So Mike Laidlaw, when he left, all his ideas for Dragon Age 4 could have just been thrown out. It's like, okay, now we're going to reboot it.
It depends on what stage of development. Yeah, you could be very right. I know that for sure his ideas were thrown out because it started in 2012, I think. It's been in production for almost 5-6 years, depending on the other products they were working on. So, Anthem is scaring me. It's beautiful. It's looking great. It's very polished. But
the
one trailer, exactly. It looks fantastic. But until we see a main character, or at least the idea of a storyline in there, it's just going to be another, as you say, a looter shooter.
It's like they're talking about when I went on the website, they're saying that why are you on this planet? It says, are you doing this for exploration, revenge? And there was I think there's 1 or 2 extras. I was like, revenge. So you're going to play a character that has like a revenge plot to it. I mean, that'd be kind of cool.
If you have to literally select the plot in a dialogue choice, I'm guessing it's not a very good narrative-driven story there.
I just don't know what they're going to do. Because you've got 4 players with 4 different agencies in a quote-unquote shared world. What the hell does that mean? With story that could go in these directions. So it's like, how much agency are you giving the players within the story? I wonder how they're going to do that, because they tried it with Star, which was pretty much just an interrupt. Really, you could just select a bit, and then
if they can do things with Dragon Age, they say it's going to be live, which is post game, so post storyline, and they're implementing stuff. Whatever that, again, we don't know what KC means. It could mean DLC. It could mean multiplayer gaming. It could be some other add-on that is they're going to add to the game. We don't know, whatever that is online. They could do that. They could have storylines that connect. Multiplayer, I don't know. I really cannot say what they're going to do. But if they're rebooting it, then I don't really care. It's going to be a whole brand new bunch of things. They're going to have their own version of elves, dwarves, Canary, whatever. It's just going to be a big smorgasbord of, well, now the elves are the smaller ones and the dwarves are the big. It's like, okay, that's great. All right, you guys are having a good time in the chat. I'm going to let you go. I'm going to let you guys go. Thank you very much for having us on for your, was it almost 2 hours? Really appreciate the talk here. We'll see more of your work, MauLer's work on his channel, his third part, the final part of his deconstruction of the deconstruction of Star Wars. And hopefully you guys will give it a shot as well. Give it a gander. Check him out on Twitter as well. He's very friendly, as you can hear. And he's open for debate, as always.
Yeah, thank you for having me as well. It's been lots of fun. Never not fun to rip into Star Wars.
Maybe we'll do it again sometime when the next movie comes out. Who knows?
Yeah. I have a feeling Solo the movie is going to be bad.